If you were to reflect on your community and those surrounding it, what would you see? Chances are there would be a lot of division. It seems like everyone has their own opinion on the issues plaguing our state, and there is no set belief on how to fix them. However, every year, more than 1,000 advocates made up of these same community members unify as one voice to rally in our state capitol's rotunda. Why? Because they can all agree that our legislators should prioritize Kentucky's youth when making decisions. We want you to join these advocates in their cause at the 14th Annual Children's Advocacy Day at the Capitol on Thursday, January 18th. Registration will be at 9:30 a.m. and the rally will be at 10 a.m.
That was Nellie Ellis, sophomore student at Whitley County High School and Blueprint Youth Ambassador with the Promise Appalachian Leaders in Service through Berea College's Partners for Education. Welcome to the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children and Kentucky Youth Advocates Advocacy 101 and Children's Advocacy Days webinar. This is specifically for youth. My name is Harper Kelly, and I'm the Youth Outreach Director with Kentucky Youth Advocates. You will also be hearing in the webinar from Thomas Callahan. Thomas is a senior from South Laurel High School. He is also a Blueprint Ambassador through the Promise Appalachian Leaders in Service. Today in the webinar, you're going to be getting an overview of the Children's Advocacy Day, what it means for legislators, and what it can mean for you. You're going to be provided with some checklists and to-dos before, during, and after CAD. And then you'll also be hearing a brief overview of the Blueprint policies that we'll be talking to legislators about and rallying around at Children's Advocacy Day and beyond that day. Now we're going to hear from Thomas and Nellie about what Children's Advocacy Day is and why it is so important for legislators to see you there.
Children's Advocacy Day at the Capitol began in 2004 as an effort to unite advocates from across the state to raise their voices on behalf of children's safety, health, education, and economic well-being. Hundreds of advocates from counties across Kentucky now gather at the Capitol in Frankfort every year to rally on behalf of children and to promote priorities on the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children agenda. The Blueprint for Kentucky's Children is a coalition of committed agencies that are working together to make Kentucky a place with thriving communities, strong families, and successful kids. Stay tuned for the release of the 2018 Blueprint for Kentucky's Children agenda.
Children's Advocacy Day is important because it allows the community to come together and be a voice for those who are voiceless. During the session, stories are told in support and relation to bills that often shock legislators and informs them about problems they might have not been aware of in the past. Even just showing up and encouraging them to remember kids leaves an impact on their vote, because the overwhelming support in this event proves that our citizens truly want Kentucky to be the best place to be a kid.
We know that numbers matter. When it comes to the Kentucky General Assembly, there are a lot of competing priorities this year and a lot of legislators who are still fairly new. When legislators see numbers, the hundreds of advocates that care about kids filling the rotunda and the halls of the annex, they realize that these issues affecting kids carry weight. We are calling on legislators to prioritize kids. With one of the largest, or the largest, turnout of advocacy days in Frankfort, we have enough voices there to make a difference. So here is an overview of the day's agenda. We have a full day planned for you, and there are many opportunities for you to participate in different activities during the day. At 10 o'clock is the rally, and that's where we all start together in the Capitol Rotunda, where we'll be able to hear legislators speaking. We'll be able to hear from some youth and give out awards to some of those legislators who have been champions for children in the past legislative sessions. We'll also talk a little bit about the Blueprint for Kentucky's Kids. But the whole point of the rally is to really come together as a group to bring that awareness to legislators that they need to prioritize kids in this legislative session. From 11 o'clock and beyond, there will be committee meetings that you can attend. Some people will be meeting with legislators in their offices or conference rooms in the Capitol Annex, which is behind the Capitol building. There are some tours that are happening. You'll need to eat lunch, and many other possible activities that you can participate in. From 11 to 12, there will be some Blueprint policy information stations that a few of you will be able to participate in as well. At 1 o'clock, there's a very special session at the Capitol mezzanine as legislators are starting to report to the floor of the House or the Senate. There's going to be a youth reception for just youth and their chaperones and any legislators that are able to stop by. We will also be giving some awards during that time to some special legislators as well. And throughout the day, we have art from different Kentucky kids in the tunnel that connects the Capitol and the Annex. We will also have a resource table in the Annex for people to ask questions. And we also have a social media station that we highly encourage you to visit to talk about kids' issues and post those on social media to gain more awareness statewide and with your legislators.
If you are planning to attend CAD, we would like you to consider to bring your phone. Why? Well, we'd love if you took selfies, visit the social media station, use hashtags, and if you could find your legislators on Twitter to engage them on a post. The hashtags we will be using is hashtag CADKY2018, hashtag KYGA18, and hashtag BlueprintKY. We can use social media to our advantage to spread awareness about policies that we'd like to be addressed in the 2018 session and to encourage kids and even adults to show up for future CAD sessions.
Before Children's Advocacy Day, we want to fill you in on a few Advocacy 101 things you can do to prepare. We're framing it around CAD, but these tips apply to any number of issues that you care about and can be for any advocate planning a visit to the Capitol or a contact with their legislators at any time during the General Assembly 2018. So let's look at what you need to do in advance. It's all about preparation. Like Nellie said, start to work on your social media game. We'll post updates from the KYA channels about bills through the session, and if you're on Twitter or Facebook, you can use these hashtags to let folks know that you're going to CAD and to be in the conversation throughout the session. And of course, you want to know all you can about policies, so you can visit the Kentucky Youth Advocate site for fact sheets about all of the legislative and administrative priorities. And if you want to check the status of those bills, you can do so with the bill tracker. As you know, it's still really early in the legislative session, so we don't have any bills up there just yet, but they will be soon. And a vital piece here, if you don't already know it, is who your legislators are and what committees they serve on. To do that, you can go to the LRC page, which is the Legislative Research Commission, or you can use the legislator lookup tool on our site. If you go to kyyouth.org/advocacy and scroll down, you'll see the legislator lookup tool. You can see a screenshot of that on the next slide. Also, if your adult leader has not done so yet, please be sure to have them go to the survey, which is on our registration page for CAD, to be able to fill out all the activities that you would like to participate in on that day. So that was all you need to do before Children's Advocacy Day. Here's what you need to do on CAD. The impact of CAD on legislators is the sheer number of advocates who attend and raise their voice for kids. There is real power in numbers in this case, so be as visible as possible, whether that's in a meeting with your legislator, at the rally, in the committee meetings, on the steps of the chambers, in the halls, in the reception area by the offices, etc. Also, share info on social media. Again, you can tweet at your legislator or post links to the Blueprint fact sheets on Facebook so your friends can read them. or take photos of the tunnel art and post them on Instagram. Embrace that as an advocacy space. Meet other advocates or connect with those you know so that we can have stronger connections and be stronger allies for kids. There will be some opportunities for you to meet briefly with legislators. Legislators are your region's representatives that serve in the House of Representatives and senators that serve in the Senate. Some groups of you will get to meet one-on-one with your local legislator, depending if the legislator's schedule will allow for it. But the best opportunity will be from 1 to 2 at the Youth and Legislative Reception. At 2 o'clock, the House and Senate go into their large session on the floor of their respective rooms. So between 1 and 2, they'll be going from their offices in the annex to their floor at different times. We have invited them to stop by and meet with you guys before they head into the session. You may only have 5 minutes or even less to speak to them, so come prepared if you can with what we call your elevator speech. Choose a policy that speaks to you and or your community somehow, and then follow the tips on this page. Introduce yourself. Give your name, your grade, your county, your school, and if you have a personal connection with them, like my grandma follows you on Facebook, or that you follow them on Twitter. That's always a really good thing to be able to say to them so that they realize you are a constituent. Even if you're not of voting age, that you have family members who are. Then tell them what you're supporting as far as a policy. I'm letting you know that I support, fill in the blank there, some policy or a big idea, and then let them know why you support it. Why is that important to kids or your families or your community? And then ask them if they will also support that policy. They may go into details about why they do or why they do not support that policy. They may ask you some questions to find out if you know some facts that they don't know about it. If so, you will have a fact sheet available for you in your folders. And so you can pull out one of those fact sheets and give it to them. We'll give you new fact sheets if you need them. If they do have a question that you can't answer, a rule of thumb that we always say, and that's always good for you to do as well, is it's easiest and best to say, I really don't know, but I can follow up and try to find out and let you know, or I might connect you with somebody who does know. For those of you that are meeting with specific legislators for a longer meeting of 15 minutes or less, we have some tips that we will be sharing with your adult mentors for that conversation. Of course, there is still a lot of session left after Children's Advocacy Day on January 18th. First, make sure that you thank your legislators if you met with them, even if you only met with them very briefly. We find that handwritten notes are best, but you can always drop an email too. There will be tips on that in your CAD folder or on the KYA website. Follow your legislators and other organizations on social media. Contact your legislators as bills move. We put out action alerts, and I know other partners do too. Sign up for email lists so that you receive those alerts. And a good way to see a lot of this information consolidated is on the bill tracker, which, as we mentioned, will be up and running as soon as relevant bills are filed. Now we're going to talk about the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children and its priorities.
The Blueprint for Kentucky's Children serves as the singular message by which countless Kentucky organizations may speak with one voice on the policies they are striving for in order to provide a better future for Kentucky's youth. The Blueprint for Kentucky's Children puts forth the idea that our children deserve to live a life where a strong and healthy household, rich education, and sense of physical well-being are put at the forefront of our focuses.
Like Thomas said, the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children is all about uniting for kids. It is a coalition of nonprofit, public, and private organizations that speaks with a common voice in order to have a better shot at making positive changes for Kentucky's children. The Blueprint stands on 3 pillars. Thriving communities launch strong families. Strong families launch successful kids. And successful kids launch a prosperous future for Kentucky. And with that, we'll turn it over to some folks who can tell you more about this year's policy priorities. So, Mahek?
I am Mahek Kalra from Kentucky Youth Advocates. I will be discussing the 2018 health legislative priority, which is increasing the tobacco tax by at least $1 to keep teens from starting to smoke and reduce smoking among pregnant women. We know health impacts every aspect of a child's life and is one of the most important components of overall child well-being. In Kentucky, tobacco takes a toll on the health of children, teens, pregnant women, but we know that viable solutions exist to end tobacco use. One of those being is increasing the tobacco tax by at least $1, which not only provides a strong revenue stream, but also is a proven method to prevent teens from starting to smoke and to prompt pregnant women to quit smoking. I'll now turn it over to Harper Kelly. My colleague will discuss some health or education policies.
Hi, so yes, I'm Harper Kelly, and the first policy that I'm going to share with you has to do with ensuring students have safe and effective educators in the classroom and in their school. Regarding the teacher tribunal process, currently tenured teachers who are removed from their jobs can appeal that decision through a process that's known as a tribunal. And in that process, a tribunal right now is made up of a teacher, an administrator, and a lay person who review the educator's case and can overturn that decision of removing them from their job. And in the past 10 years or so, these tribunals have been, actually more than that, the tribunals have been inconsistent, and they more often overturn decisions that were made in the best interest of student success and safety. A vast majority of the cases that went to a tribunal, which many cases don't, but the ones that do, more than 7 out of 10 cases have been overturned where the teacher was originally terminated. And so there is a policy that the Blueprint is supporting, which would ask for a more balanced process that would still provide ample opportunity to review the educator's case while taking into account additional perspectives on those cases. And then I'm also going to share with you a policy that is ensuring the stability, the educational stability of foster students and through K-12 education. Children who are removed from their home due to abuse or neglect face a number of transitions when they're placed with a relative or foster parent. And prioritizing staying in their own school when a child is facing other significant transitions can offer stability through that traumatic time. When they're taken out of their home, allowing for them to remain in their current school can offer some of that stability where everything else around them is unstable. Sometimes it is determined according to what's best for that student or that youth to attend a different school, and that may be if they're placed in a home that's further away. And so that transition, if they are to move, should be smooth through immediate enrollment and a more speedy transference of records. Additionally, older foster children who have been forced to navigate many different schools and districts should have a better aligned pathway to graduation. By highlighting, clarifying, and strengthening the language and laying out a framework, we can improve the outcomes of the foster kids in Kentucky's education. And now I'm going to switch it over to my colleague, Terrence Sullivan.
Hey everybody, I'm Terrence Sullivan at KYA. And what I wanted to talk about was our policy that we're pushing for of enacting a state earned income tax credit. A state-level refundable earned income tax credit, or EITC, would help working families meet the basic needs of their children and build on the positive gains that the federal EITC has shown in reducing poverty and reducing reliance on government support. It also improves child well-being. EITC recipients typically spend their returns at local businesses, so it also benefits local economies. And EITC can only be claimed by people who work and earn income through work, so it helps build on the success of the federal EITC in keeping children out of poverty, and it's been the most successful of any poverty reduction policy. And it also has worked to increase employment levels and decrease the use of government assistance among parents. Evidence has shown that typically 3 out of 5 recipients only claim it for 1 or 2 years, and so it is a policy that it's an investment that states will make, but then people quickly get off of it because it helps them get on their feet. So the EITC is a great way to encourage and reward work while also growing local economy. And the EITC has a tested and proven track record of increasing workforce participation and a fast and positive return on investment. I will now transition over to Patricia Tennant.
Hi, thanks, Terrence. So I'd like to share with you our priority for childcare. We'd like to strengthen childcare support for working parents by increasing provider reimbursement rates for Childcare Assistance Program, also known as CCAP, and allowing parents earning incomes up to 200% of the federal poverty level to receive CCAP. So we know that parents can contribute to a stronger Kentucky workforce when they go to work knowing they have safe, reliable, and affordable childcare options. And currently, childcare, as many of you know, is extremely expensive, especially if it's high-quality care. It can cost as much as or more than tuition at a public university. And so for low-income parents, they are often that's out of reach, which forces them to either make the decision to stay out of the workforce or they have to place their kids in unsafe or inconsistent settings. And so CCAP, the Child Care Assistance Program, offers subsidies to help them afford that safe and reliable care that they need for parents to work and for kids to thrive. The child care assistance is also a critical component to grow Kentucky's workforce. Unstable childcare translates into direct costs for employers through employee absenteeism, tardiness, and reduced productivity. And so we know our current administration is really focused on improving our workforce and getting more people to participate. And so we know that it's crucial. We can't achieve that goal without having child care assistance to help the low-wage earners to work or to get that additional training that they need to afford a living wage for their families. And the other component that's really critical is to ensure that we are reimbursing child care providers who are accepting CCAP in an adequate way so that they can cover the cost of providing that care. If we can increase reimbursement rates, we can ensure that those high-quality providers will continue to accept CCAP and that they can continue to keep the businesses open so that we have childcare available for all Kentucky parents who need it. And now I will pass it over to Tara Bishop-Goodwin.
Thank you, Patricia. The first item I'm going to talk about is reforms around the juvenile justice system. We are looking at some changes to continue ensuring that our system of juvenile justice is utilizing the most effective responses to both hold youth accountable, but do so in a way that promotes public safety. How we as a state respond to young children and to youth of any age when they do something that's against the law really matters. Some interventions, and even some that seem to work on the face, can actually have unintended consequences that would make it more likely for youth to commit offenses in the future. So we know that we're going to get the best results for safer communities and for setting youth on a path to succeed as adults if we tailor the response to the situation and we don't draw kids into the maze of the juvenile justice system, which can have many ways in, and it can be hard for kids to get out of that system successfully. So there are a number of reforms that we're looking at in that overall package to make sure we're doing what's most effective for our communities and for the young people. The next item is looking specifically at what we do in terms of responding to young children when they get in trouble. We know that kids are kids, and sometimes they do things that aren't appropriate. And again, when we respond, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is going to set the children up on a path to become successful in life. In Kentucky, currently, kids as young as 6, 7, and 8 years old have been charged with offenses. And we know that when we're dealing with children that young, you often need a full family response to a situation like that. What we have now, though, is that a child would get charged and enter the court system. And so we're looking at alternative ways to respond to those young children, because the research is quite clear that responding in a different way, we're going to get better results for that young child to become a successful adult in the future, but also that means we're going to have safer communities. And finally, in my section, I'm going to be turning it over to one more colleague after this. We are looking at the issue of parental incarceration. Currently in Kentucky, we have the second highest rate in the nation of children who have had a parent who has been incarcerated. I'm sure you all have heard about Kentucky's growing and very expensive prison costs, and Kentucky kids are really impacted by this. Reforms that are being considered would allow people who can be safely released prior to trial to do so. This means for parents that they can continue working and for their children. Another area of interest with reforms is looking at making sure that incarceration is focused on the most serious offenses. In recent years, we've seen the number of prison admissions for drug possession double, and that has been a specific driver of the big increase we've seen as a state in the number of female prisoners. What we know is that when females go to prison, that's more likely to mean that a child is going to have to be placed in the care of a relative or in the foster care system. So with thoughtful reforms that prioritize public safety, we can minimize the impact of incarceration on children. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon Moody.
Thanks, Tara. I'm going to cover our expansive list of child welfare-related blueprint priorities, starting with our family preservation and START priority. We want to ensure that adequate funding for programs that work to keep children safe from abuse and neglect, such as family preservation and the START program, are adequately supported. We know that the system right now is facing significant strains. However, I think we're remaining hopeful or optimistic because all branches have expressed interest in helping to improve the system as a whole. So with that, ensuring that family preservation and the START program have adequate supports in order to serve the need and keep kids in homes safely is one of the priorities that we are looking to in 2018. Another significant priority that has gotten a lot of attention, especially since the freeze of the kinship care program in 2013, is the kinship care program. We are looking for our legislators and policymakers to reinstate that program to ensure that there is adequate funding for those family members or close family friends who take in children who have experienced abuse or neglect, so that they can adequately support those children in their homes and are not financially burdened excessively. The next priority that we are hoping get some traction is around foster and kinship supports. We know that foster families and kinship families can be even stronger with services outside of the home, like therapy or educational programs. And when those families are ready to adopt children, in-home services can make the adoption transition easier, as well as help if issues arise even after adoption is final. So having kinship caregivers who are adopting children could use relief from costs associated with adoption, such as court and filing fees, which is a benefit that the state already offers to foster parents, but those would help to ensure that that permanency is actually permanent for those children who are seeking it and can then maintain it within that family. Another item that, again, is getting quite a bit of attention in the media and also within that House Working Group on Adoptions and the LRC's program review is around workforce supports to increase retention and recruitment. In order to respond effectively to families and children in crisis, the Department for Community-Based Services caseworkers need to be skilled and have extensive training. Caseworker turnover impacts child outcomes by taking experienced workers out of the field and slowing down work on the child. So the state budget is also impacted with that turnover, as it's an estimated about $13,000 in direct and indirect costs when a caseworker leaves and a new caseworker is hired. So ensuring that we have supports for our workforce, especially around technology and ways to make things efficient, is going to be really important for that workforce recruitment and retention piece. Another legislative priority identified on the blueprint is around keeping kids safe from abuse by allowing adults to whom a child has disclosed abuse to testify in court. We know that when adults are held accountable in the court system, kids are safer from abuse. If a child has been a victim of abuse, trauma and fear may affect their ability to testify in court. Their fear or inability should not prevent a judge from hearing accurate information about a child's experience, which is crucial in determining a verdict in child abuse cases. So if a child has disclosed information about abuse to an adult, that adult could testify about that disclosure. And then the final child welfare related piece, which is one that we saw on in the recommendations from the House Working Group on Adoptions as well, something related to this around strengthening the Ombudsman's office. We are hoping to increase the transparency within the Department for Community-Based Services by moving the functions related to appeals and other complaints within the Office of the Ombudsman to outside of the Cabinet for Health and Family Services in order to better serve families. So those functions around issuing reports about the number and types of complaints that DCBS receives, recommending corrective action or administrative hearings based on complaints, reviewing requests to appeal child abuse and or neglect substantiation, and also investigating complaints about DCBS. And there's also interest in potentially expanding the scope of that in the future.
Before we wrap up, I'd like for Thomas and Nellie to share some highlights of their Children's Advocacy Day experiences to get everyone watching this excited for Children's Advocacy Day.
My experience at CAD has dealt with direct advocacy for policies found within the Blueprint for Kentucky's Children, chiefly the past policy dealing with kinship care. I remember in the 2017 legislative session taking part in a breakout presentation over kinship care, where I, along with Advocate Nellie Ellis, presented to countless passionate advocates over the importance of this policy and how it will positively impact our state. Beyond this, I used CAD as an opportunity to meet with Representative Carney, in which I, along with many other passionate advocates, were given the opportunity to ask burning questions pertaining to our state's kids. All in all, my CAD experience has been one of fruitful advocacy and deep learning.
Last year, Thomas and I advocated for House Bill 180. This bill said that the state should consider fictive kin as caregivers. It allowed children with no nearby family to be placed with a close family friend to avoid the trauma of changing their environment dramatically or placing them in the foster care system. After spending the day promoting and discussing the bill, we were very pleased to find out it had passed its committee, and as of today, Kentucky officially recognizes fictive kin as caregivers.
Thank you, Thomas and Nellie. I look forward to seeing you and everyone watching this webinar on Children's Advocacy Day. If any of you have any questions about Blueprint for Kentucky's children policies or the schedule during Children's Advocacy Day, please don't hesitate to contact me or anyone on our registration page on our KYA website. See you at CAD.